session. Welcome, everybody. I'm Luann Fortune. I'm with the Mind Body Medicine program, and you probably know me because I invited you to come join us. Every other week, I meet with my dissertation students in an informal writer's circle where we gather together and we write. And we also have some guests come in. I had asked Noah to come join us to talk about library topics, and he graciously agreed to come join us, especially since there are some new features and databases in our library that he's going to mention. So this session is specifically geared towards students who are working on your dissertation or your literature review at that higher level of doing research searches, literature searches, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions that come up. So I know Noah likes to take questions as they go about, but if we can sort of maybe hold off, we're a pretty big group. We are recording. So Noah, what if I periodically pause so we can take questions as you go through your delivery, and then I hand it on over to you. So
yes, that sounds great. If so, let's I am interested in anticipating that maybe even as much as like half of the time that we've got could be used for questions and answers if you've got enough questions. I find that that's often the most productive way to approach a session like this. But if, as I'm getting started here, if there are questions that are surfacing for you in the moment, you could put them in the chat. And Luann, if you could just keep an eye on the chat, because like I said, I sometimes have trouble splitting my attention between looking at the screen and then focusing on the chat. But I do want to encourage all of you, whether it's as we're going here at the beginning or when we get to a time where we're specifically soliciting for questions, that questions are very welcome. And in fact, it's a primary organizing structure for what I think I'm doing here. So please do have your questions ready. And so are we about, should I get started, Luann?
I think we can go ahead and get started. We have a critical mass here. And again, thank you everybody for joining us. And we are recording now. Please keep yourself on mute unless it's time for questions. And Noah is sharing the screen. So I will also put myself on mute. Thanks, Noah.
Great, thank you. So there is one very large elephant in the room in terms of new library tools and platforms. And so because the timing of this just worked out quite well, I'm going to tailor some kind of advanced searching tips, but really structure that around making sure that I'm giving you a kind of full introduction to the new OneSearch platform. So this, I hope most of you are familiar with OneSearch already, but if not, it would be understandable. It is quite new. We're still kind of at the very end of the beta test period for this, and we set it up so that the community could start accessing the OneSearch platform early in the summer, and we've been gathering a lot of input and feedback and submitting our own, and it's a very large ongoing process to get all of this kind of humming along correctly and as efficiently as possible, but we are certainly getting there. And this kind of tool, what OneSearch is the kind of thing that we have not had at Saybrook before, really, and that students and faculty and librarians have been asking about for many, many years. So it's basically a platform that hoovers in, that sucks up, that ingests all of the index record information at the record level from the vast majority of all the databases we have subscription access to. And it takes all that information and puts it in one index so that you can be doing one search and be pulling results from the vast majority of all of our databases. And that is down to the record level. So if you're looking, for instance, and this is one of the major examples I'll use as we move through this, but if you're looking for, like you're doing some known item searching for a journal article, let's say you're reading an article or a book chapter that you've got at home, and you recognize that, oh, there's 4 papers here I want to follow up on. I really should take a look at these and see if they're as relevant as the title suggests they would be. And so you've got the full citation information and you want to know, do we have access to this particular article? rather than going through the old process of using the serial solutions, the index to full text, to search on the journal title and then to see what kind of holdings we have for that journal and then to track down the article that way. This is a much more straightforward kind of one-stop shop for doing that kind of searching. And I'll tell you a little bit about some of the strategies I've been putting together for myself to make this work a little bit better. But generally, the OneSearch engine can replace a number of the tasks that you've had to do differently and with a little more legwork in the past. And then a lot of that is known item searching. It can be used for discovery searching too, but there's some limitations to that compared to using the native subject-specific databases one at a time. Notably, the kind of specificity, sophistication of the searches you can build in OneSearch is pretty limited compared to the native databases. And the reason for that is that there's so much information in it. So if you think like about the ProQuest dissertations database, because that database covers every disciplinary area, because it's dissertations and theses from biochemistry and from, you know, European history and everything, the subject terminology that they use to organize the information in the dissertations database, for instance, is very general and broad and not very helpful actually for searching. And the reason for that is because it covers so many things. They can't have a very well-defined, subtly teased out subject hierarchy that you could use to discover things. And in a similar way, because the OneSearch platform is pulling records from all of these different disciplinary databases, the subject terminology that's so powerfully effective in the databases becomes very watered down in OneSearch, because it's not one controlled vocabulary subject hierarchy. It's a little bit from here, a little bit from there. So there are some limitations, especially for advanced searching in the OneSearch, but there are also some great strengths, which is that you're searching in one place and you're getting all of these results from all these different places. And there are some ways to leverage that reality, maybe in some slightly unexpected ways that could also help encouraging and making your subject-specific searching in databases a little easier as well. And I'll get into that too. But so my plan here really at this introductory piece is to focus on some of the things about OneSearch that you may not know and that will benefit you greatly, as you said, about dissertation research. And this includes the new Interlibrary Loan system that is built into, constructed inside of basically the OneSearch system. And this is really, especially as dissertating students, this is hugely important to you and very, very valuable and beneficial and a real upgrade from how we've had to operate for the last 20 years or so. So I'll get to that too. But so the first thing about the OneSearch is I built it so that the main point of egress into the OneSearch system is right here on the library's homepage. So this is the library homepage, and you can see there's a big OneSearch box at the top. So if you're ever unsure about how to get to the OneSearch system, you can always get to it right from the library homepage. And this is quite a functional, like, starting search box, but you may find that you're interested, once you're a little more familiar with it, in jumping either right into an advanced search, which you can do by clicking on this advanced search button right here, or you may just want to go right to the actual homepage for the whole OneSearch system rather than using the search box to get into it. And so both of those options are right here. The other thing that I'll mention is there's some limiters built into this search box here. So by default, it's going to be searching everything. And what everything means in the OneSearch context is all of the Saybrook records that the system has. So this is something else that's really quite helpful for us in Saybrook compared to some of our affiliate partners who are also using the OneSearch system. This was something we all adopted at the same time. And so at Pacific Oaks and TCSPP and the schools of law all have access to the same system. For us, because we don't have a physical library or a physical library collection, when you're searching everything at Saybrook, basically every record that you return is something that can be immediately digitally accessed. So when you search on everything in the OneSearch, every result that you get should be something theoretically should be something that you can get into and download right away, because we don't have, books that you would have to check out or request. So when you're searching our system, you're searching only things that are actually available. And now so I'll point that out. That's everything. That's the default. There is also an option here for peer reviewed, and basically that limits the search to only look at journal articles from peer reviewed journals. And once in a while, you may be familiar with this already, a peer-reviewed journal can still have a non-peer-reviewed article in it, say like an editorial or something like that. And so what the system is doing is it's limiting to journal articles and to journals that are themselves peer-reviewed, but that doesn't necessarily mean 100% of the articles that appear in peer-reviewed journals are peer-reviewed articles. They could be editorials, which don't get the same peer review process. And then books is just our ebooks, and journals is searching for a journal title. So that's not looking for journal articles, but that's looking for, okay, so I want to see if we have the Journal of Humanistic Psychology, and it will pull up the record then for that journal. So the OneSearch system has records for articles, for books, for book chapters, for journals, for streaming video, although not all the videos we've got. That's one of the weaknesses of the system currently as we approach the end of the beta. But articles and books and book chapters are mostly in here from all of our databases. So those are the basic search options here on the library homepage OneSearch search box. So you could jump right to the advanced search. You could go right to the OneSearch homepage. You could choose to search everything, peer-reviewed journal articles, books, or journals themselves. So let's just do a very general depression and meditation. And we'll just do a search. And from this search box on the library homepage, when we execute this first search, it's going to take us into the OneSearch system. So this is what it looks like, and brings us to the results page here. And now remember what I was saying, when we're searching by default, the everything option, we're searching everything at the Saybrook Library. It means all of these records should be pointing to digital objects that are immediately available to us. And notice that this search, depression and meditation, brought back nearly 90,000 matches, and all 90,000 of these matches should be immediately available. Either they're open access like this one is, or they're coming from one or another of our databases. And so this, you can already see, is quite powerful. And the power here really is just that you're drawing from such a huge pool of potential information. And the fact that because our collection is all of our digitally accessible stuff, all of this stuff is immediately available. So this was just to give you a quick sense of, this is a search that you can do on the search box on the library homepage. This is what the results page looks like. Because the system is so large and it's drawing from such a huge number of records, when you do a search, as you can see with this one, you're going to tend to get a lot of results. So one of the things that becomes quite important, especially if you're just doing like subject searching, rather than doing like known item searching where you've got a citation and you want to try to find the full text version of the article. But if you're doing a subject search like this, one of the really important things to learn how to work with, and this is common in many databases these days, are these kind of facets and search limiters along the left-hand side here. So when you've got 90,000 results, clearly you don't want to look through 90,000 results. So one thing, maybe the first thing you could do is try to make the search itself a little more specific. But beyond that, there's all of these other ways to limit and use these facets to hone in on the actual results you're looking for. So in our particular collection, like I was saying, when we search everything, we're searching only things that are available online. So this available online facet's not very helpful for us. But you could, at this point, because we just searched everything, we didn't search the peer-reviewed option, which was one of the other options on that search box. We could limit this result to just peer-reviewed journal articles only, or open access. So the availability is one of the facet types here. The resource type is the type of item that you're looking to discover. So journal articles or books or videos or conference proceedings. So all the different kinds of publication and information object types So if you were only looking for newspaper articles, or if you wanted to leave out newspaper articles, you can kind of hover over one of these options and click on this little exclude button. So if you didn't want to see any newspaper articles, this is a quick way to get rid of 16,000 of our search matches here. And there's, the list of resource types will change based on the search that you've done and what's actually present in the result set. But these are types of items, types of information items. Creation date, of course, is like publication date, and you can do a range. And so this is a very good way to limit some results. If you're getting 90,000 results and, some of them are from the 1930s and you're not doing a historical study, it might be useful to get rid of some of the older stuff. And now something that's interesting is this collection one. And what they mean by collection is basically what database has these results come from. So you could do this general search and it's pulling from all the different databases. And you could say, oh, I only want to see stuff that's coming from Medline, or I want to leave out stuff from Medline, or I want to see only stuff from Medline. But notice one of the things that happens here is if you do a general subject search like this in OneSearch, and then you come over, you get a big result set like this, you come over to the collection facet, you start looking at the databases that the results for this search are pulled from, and they organize them by the highest number of matches. So for this particular search, the Ingenta Connect database, which is just a kind of random almost collection of bunches and bunches of single title journals that we have access to on that one Ingenta platform. So that one's not quite as helpful because it's not subject based. But you can take a look down this list of which databases return the most results for this search to help to give you a sense of, if I was going to go into an individual disciplinary based database to do more searching on this topic, which of the databases that we have access to are going to be the most productive for this particular topic. So sometimes you really don't know, sometimes you do know, like which database is going to be most helpful for searching on this particular topic. Maybe it's PsycInfo, or it's Medline, or it's the Cochrane Library, or whatever. But sometimes you really don't know. Maybe it's an interdisciplinary topic, or you're looking for a topic you're familiar with from one field of study, but you're really looking for another field's take on that. Sometimes you're just not sure. You may not even be sure of all the databases we have access to anymore because we keep adding some new ones here and there. So this is a great way to help to connect you from just a general subject search to like what other resources might be helpful for this particular search. So this collection facet can be quite useful both in limiting your results in a current search, but also in giving you ideas, bridges to reach out to other resources and databases that might be productive for a particular search you're doing. And then journal title is pretty self-explanatory. And again, it works in the same way as the collections facet. It shows you starting with the one journal with the most number of results for this particular search, and then it moves on down the list. And the subject, like I mentioned, is only so helpful in this particular database because it's pulling the subject information from so many different locations. It doesn't necessarily fit together in the same way that it does very powerfully in a discipline-specific database. But these can be used as well. So like mindfulness here, we could say only things that are talking about meditation and depression and mindfulness. And then we'd be quickly down to 5,000 matches instead of 75,000 or whatever we've got. And then language is the last one. So generally, this is the overall kind of setup of the OneSearch system, what it looks like. Those facets are quite important in the search results. Once you're in the system, rather than coming from the library homepage search box, there's a couple other things to point out, kind of bells and whistles here. The first thing is that we all, by default, every active Saybrook community member does have a personal account in the OneSearch system. And this was all automatically imported from our student management and employee management systems, and it's automatically updated. So as people take a leave of absence and don't have a pause on their active identity at Saybrook, or when a new student begins, they should automatically have an account created. So there's nothing you need to do to create an account. There is no new passwords you need or anything. If you have to sign in, like I'm not signed in because it's still giving me the sign in option here. Either when you click on the sign in button, if you've already signed in to, to get into Canvas or to get into your email in this particular session with your browser, it should automatically, when you click on the sign in button, recognize who you are and sign you in. And if you haven't signed into anything else yet, you'll get the standard regular single sign-on sign-in screen, the TCS Saybrook screen, where you put in your regular username, which is your Saybrook email, and your one regular password that you use for everything else to get to Canvas, to get to email. So there's nothing new you need to create here. This all happens automatically, no effort that you have to make other than to remember that it is necessary to sign in when you want to submit an interlibrary loan request. Or access things like you can save searches and then access them later so you could run them again to see if there's any updated records that are going to match your old search. But so let's sign in and see how this works. Right, so I haven't signed in at all for this browser session yet, so it's giving me this standard sign in, login, our single sign-on page. And then once you're signed in, it will have your name up here, and the options that you have underneath this are, you can look at the My Requests we'll get to later because this is the interlibrary loan stuff. The RefWorks, boy, I'm not sure, that must connect to our potentially to our RefWorks account. And then the favorites in the search history are the things like you can save a search, or you can save some records. You can save search history stuff and get back into it. I haven't played too much with this yet. Within the accounts, what I've been playing with mostly is the interlibrary loan, which I'll get to in a minute. But just so you know, that is how you sign in. The one thing that you will find eventually that you must sign in for is to access any of your saved like search history stuff, or to work with any of the interlibrary loan stuff. Aside from that, for daily use, you could generally just be not logged in. There's no additional functionality besides the favorites and the history and the interlibrary loan that the logging into the system provides access to. Does all this make sense so far?
Can we stop for a couple of questions?
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to ask some of my questions because they feed out of your overview. Thank you for the clear overview. This was interesting for me, and I thought I knew how to use this. Is there an algorithm that OneSearch tracks according to my account, similar to the way Google Scholar would?
I hope not. That would be a little discouraging and problematic. I mean, this is one of the problems with Google generally, is when we're doing research, we don't want really the vast majority of the time to be recognized. We don't want someone giving us results that they think we want. We're doing research. We may be very specifically seeking out things we've not been interested in before. And all of these algorithms are really trying to pigeonhole you and understand what your interests are and only feed you the things either that they think you'll like, or the things that they think will get you very upset and angry and make you spend more time looking at the screen. And when we're doing research, we'd like to be anonymous. We'd like to interact kind of neutrally with all of the information that's available. We really don't want to be recognized or catered to in that way. It really compromises systems, in fact, and it's one of the main objections to using Google for research.
So this is a real basic question that's come from a couple of people who are with us. It has to do with the access. And I think I knew when I put something in the chat box, but to confirm with you, if we go in and do one search, is the default the entire collection, which we can then limit down by publication or database or date? Because the question specifically was, does a search have access to the full array of publications using OneSearch?
Yes, but it depends what you mean by the full array of publications. The full array of publications that we have access to, right? So it's not everything that's ever been published. It's only all of the millions of individual items that we have access to through our subscriptions and through ebooks that we own, all of that. And there is a way, which we're going to need to get into in a minute, which is a little more advanced, about searching beyond our collection. And that this is possible to do as well. And in fact, it's necessary, or it's helpful anyway, in doing the interlibrary loan requests. And it can also be useful in searching, kind of identifying whether something exists and gathering publication information. This can also be useful for that. But by default, what you're searching is almost everything that we own or subscribe to access to through all of the different databases and platforms that we currently have access to. So it's all the journal articles that are available in all the different databases that we subscribe to, all of the ebooks and chapters from ebooks, and a chunk of the streaming video, but much of that is still not included because we've got some issues still with some of the platform providers for the video. But generally, yes, by default, you're searching almost everything that we have access to. And then there is a way to broaden the scope of your search so that you're searching beyond our collections. And we'll look at that in a minute. Was
Okay,
that?
so I think we got that, but my next question off of that is it full text? Because I know we can go into different databases and it doesn't necessarily mean that we have full text to what we see. In OneSearch, when we get displays, are all of those displays associated with items that are available in full text to us?
Yes, that is correct. So in OneSearch, all of the records, when you just search, before you go to beyond my collection, but when you're just searching for the Saybrook library collection, it's only index records for things that we have the full text access to that item. So it is the case that many databases are indices. I mean, databases really, they all began as indices. It's an index. It's not providing access. That's only very, very recent that's been added on top of the index function of a database. A database is about discovery. Historically, it's been about discovery. It's only very recently that access is something that sits on top of that discovery. But all of these indices and databases were created for discovery purposes so that you didn't have to buy every issue of every journal and look through the table of contents to see everything that exists. There was going to be one place, a paper index at first, where all that information was there. And you could look by subject, you could look by author and get all that information. That's still mainly what a database is. So some of the database companies that create an index and they sell access to that, you can imagine that they're not very interested in allowing their records, which is their value proposition, to be included in somebody else's tool. So when we have the access to the item, we also have access to all versions, basically, of the index record for that item. But yes, you should not be finding in a OneSearch search, when you search everything Saybrook Library Collection, all of your results are things that are digitally available to us immediately. And it's not returning records for things we don't have access to.
So one of the next questions that came into the chat box is, why would anybody ever then go into an individual database to do a search? Why wouldn't they always use OneSearch?
Well, so you can get a taste of that already by the test search that we did. Do you always, every time you do a search, you want to look through 90,000 records? Probably not. But the biggest reason really is the subject-specific databases offer a huge array of very powerful search capacity that a tool like this cannot duplicate. So there's strengths and weaknesses to all the different kinds of systems we have. There are many great strengths associated with the OneSearch system, the biggest being doing known item searching now is much, much easier and streamlined because you do one search and you're pulling results from all of the possibilities. But discovery searching, when you've got a subject or a topic and you need to discover what exists on this topic, you're going to be much, much better served. You're going to get much higher quality results. It will be much more rewarding if you go through the process of figuring out which of the disciplinary databases are focused on the content area for this particular search, and then using all of the advanced search features that are available in individual databases, which are much more robust than what's available in OneSearch. The OneSearch like limiters and facets are really meant to whittle down a big list. They're not meant for like super detailed advanced discovery. And within the individual native databases, like for instance in PsycInfo, you can limit your search by methodology. So what method was used for generating the research data that these articles came from? You can't specify anything like that in OneSearch. So there's all kinds of very powerful advanced search functionality that cannot be integrated into the OneSearch system because it just has so much different data from different sources that it can't be uniformly kind of indexed and labeled and structured in the same way as it can be in a subject-specific database. And that is the power of those subject-specific databases, is the controlled vocabulary subject terminology that is specific to that disciplinary area. It's the uniform author name list that lets you like find an article by one author and then use that name to find all the other articles by that author, even if like the middle initial's different in some articles. And so the information is much more controlled and organized correctly in a discipline-specific database that has built-in structures to encourage and enable advanced search strategies. And that's really not the purpose of OneSearch. It's much more about like, I don't want to do multiple searches. I kind of know what I'm looking for, and I just want you to pull, matches from wherever they exist.
Cool. We have a question, and I about interlibrary loan, and I know you're going to talk about that, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you're ready to talk about it yet. So I will let you get on.
Yes.
Any other questions about OneSearch as Noah's moving through this material and giving us so much to think about? Okay, I think you can keep going. Thanks.
Okay, so before we get to the interlibrary loan, which will be the next thing, let me just point out one of the other kind of more advanced options here, which is just the advanced search within OneSearch. So now you remember when we started at the library homepage and we had the OneSearch search box there, and the example I used was kind of like a broad subject search. I put in depression and meditation. One of the things that the OneSearch is really good for, which I keep mentioning, is known item searching. So when you have a citation and you just want to figure out, do we have access, full text access to this particular article, let's say. So one of the fundamental searches you can do for known item searching in the OneSearch system, you could start back at the library homepage and at the OneSearch search box there, leave it on everything, and put in the title of a journal article that you're looking for. You want to find out if we have it in full text. So you can put in the title of the article and do a search on that. And that's the easiest way to take a first look to see, do we easily have full text access to this article? Sometimes it may come back, there's a lot of results. The article you're looking for is not in the first couple matches, but you're pretty sure we should have access to this article, I think. So I'm not sure I really believe the answer that we don't have access to this. Let me try something a little more detailed. There's two other strategies you should try after that. So the first thing to try is just put in the title of the article, surround it in quotation marks to force the system to look for the title as a phrase, not just every word appearing somewhere, but all those words in the title appearing together. So surround it in quotation marks, do a search on the title. If that doesn't work, the next thing to try is to go to this advanced search. And it just gives you this new, more complicated search box up here. The first thing you have to choose is the scope of what you're searching. And we'll get to this in a second, the Beyond My Library Interlibrary Loan. By default, we're usually in the everything Saybrook library materials. And the question that Luann just asked was about, is this all the records we have, or is this all the items we have access to? And this is all the items we have access to. So that's the Saybrook library materials. That's the default scope for the search. And in a second, we'll get to the Beyond My Library. But so this is the advanced search. If you are looking for a journal article, you're doing some known item searching, you've got a citation, you want to know, do we have full text access to that article? You put in the title, it doesn't come up in the first searches, but you're pretty sure that we should have access to it. So here's where you can do a little more detailed search for that. And I would say, the title of the article is or contains, and let's just put in depression and meditation as words that might appear in the article title. And then we can also include maybe the primary author's last name. We'll just say white or something. And notice that as in many databases, we can add additional lines, so we can keep going with the Boolean searches and choose different fields to populate here. But so let's imagine we're looking for an article that has depression and meditation in the title. The author has the last name of White. And notice that there's a material types box up here. So if we were looking for journals or for books or articles, and like I said, the videos or dissertations could be helpful too, I guess. The video film is, we're still working on getting that all fully populated. But so this, we're imagining, was an article. We could also choose publication date. So this is just a way to be a little more specific about, like, no, really, this is the article I'm looking for. Do we have this article? And let's give that a shot. It will populate the, and I was just working on the fly, so I didn't know that there would be an article like this. But let's try maybe Smith or something. Here we go. Now we found at least one. And so whenever you get a record, I guess we should talk about this really quickly now that we're done with looking generally at the advanced search screen. When you're getting records in any kind of search results presentation, clicking on the title is the way to load the full index record. Now, do you know sometimes in Google, when you do a search, they're like, I'm feeling lucky is one of the options you can choose. So instead of getting all the results, it just kind of takes you automatically to the first result. There is something similar here. If you click on this available online here, what it's going to do is try to bypass the full look, having you look at the full record and take you to one of the places that this article is supposed to be available from. So, you know, many times we have access to a particular article through, you know, 5 or 10 different databases. And so this is like the available online from a search results page. Clicking on that's like clicking on the Google, I'm feeling lucky. It's just going to take you immediately to one of the results, and it might, it could get broken or problematic. So it's very often in your best interest to click on the title first to pull up the full record for whatever the article is, or the journal, or the book. And from here, there's all kinds of interesting and useful stuff that you can do, including all the faculty that are attending today, including easily generating a permalink for this record. So when you're putting together syllabi, or you're putting together readings that you want your students to track down, one of the ways that we can now do this consistently and easily is you can always pull a permalink for a full record in OneSearch. And from the record in OneSearch, you can get to all the different places where this item is available. And the permalink means permanent link. So that permalink will always point to this record. Even if the databases that we have access to this article change, this record will still be the same, and it will still live at the same permalink. So even as information, access information changes for a specific article, this permalink will continue to function and point correctly to this record. And the information in this record itself will be updated. So that's the permalink. You can also, from any record, you can pull a citation, and these come with all the usual, you know, warnings that they do their best, but you can't count 100% on this being fully correct with all the information formatted correctly. But it's helpful, like it is in most databases. You can pull and copy it to the clipboard. You could print the record. You can export to Zotero EndNote and other kinds of standard reference management. You can export directly to RefWorks or EndNote Web. You can email the record to yourself. And then as we move down the record, there's this View Online full text availability section, and this is outlining all the different databases and platforms where we do have access to this particular item. And I noticed that all of these are this is all open access stuff. So this is all freely available medical journals or free e-journals or through this unpaywall. So it's one of the other strengths of the OneSearch system is that it really is pulling from all of these different databases, not just our subscription resources, but also open access and publicly available resources of different kinds. This unpaywall is super interesting. It has records for information about like pre-publication versions of articles that are available at institutional repository servers. And so it really is a very useful way, without us having to do much work, of trying to gather access to all of these kind of outliers that are publicly available, but in strange places that you would have to kind of think to look at if you were to access them normally. And this is kind of trying to suck in all that information into the OneSearch system as well. And then if you keep going down this list, it's got the rest of the index information. So the abstract in this case, and some of the more, the citation-like details. So that's generally what a record looks like. And some of them will be bigger, some of them a little smaller, but they all have this kind of functionality here that lets you export to RefWorks and get a citation, get a permalink, and specifically and importantly, show you all of the access routes that we have for this particular item. So like I was saying, if you go from the search results out here and you say, I'm feeling lucky, you click on that available online, it's just going to deliver you, it's going to try to deliver you probably to this one, to the free e-journals, access to that article. And it's, even though it takes an extra second or two, it's much better to do it this way so that you know starting out, where do we actually have access to this from? And then if like this one doesn't work for some reason, you know that there were two other options for how to get to this. And so it's, the more you know about what you're doing, the better off you are. The less you're just like, well, I hope the system likes me today and does the right thing. It's much better to understand how can you gather more information when things go wrong, what might that look like, and how do you do troubleshooting? How can you find other options? So that's always a good idea. Okay, so that's the advanced search, and the advanced search is always available next to the search box here. And we'll just run through really quickly these other buttons at the top. So if you click on the OneSearch option here, it will take you back to this page, back to the OneSearch start page. If you click on home, it will take you to the Saybrook library website. So if we click on this home button, it brings up the library website. And if we click on the search button, just like the OneSearch button, it's going to take us back to the OneSearch homepage, start page. The journal search is a way to search on the title of a journal. So this basically is like duplicating how we used to use the index to full text. So if you, and this is, I should mention this now. So we started with, you're looking for an article, known item. You put the title of the article in quotation marks in the everything OneSearch search box and try to look for the article that way. If that doesn't work, but you think we might actually have access to that article, then you try the advanced search where you can say, this is in the title, this is one of the authors, the item type I'm looking for is an article. And if that doesn't work, the next thing I would do to fully investigate, do we have access to this article, is to look up the journal. So look up the journal that that article appears in to see, like we used to with the index to full text, what years of full text access do we have for this journal in every different database where we might have this access. So you could quickly see, you know, this article I'm looking for was published in 2008. Do we have full text access to this particular journal for 2008 in any database? And doing this journal search would be the way to do that. So let's say humanistic psychology.
So now a question that came up that's kind of around this has to do, I think, with data integrity. The question is, why are citations so often wrong, meaning capitalization of all words in the title, for example, or authors that are not spelled out properly? I guess it's because somebody human inserted that information somewhere, but why is there so much inconsistency?
Well, it's because data is coming from very many locations, and there's an awful lot of it. So there's billions and billions of records. I mean, one way to think about this in terms of exposure to the academic conversation and working with, you know, academic journal articles, when I've had jobs in the past where I'm working in, you know, say a lab situation where all of my library clients are also scientists at this research lab. And so they're all publishing, they're publishing all the time. And you get to understand quite quickly that the vast majority of information that they're submitting about their own publications will have errors in the citations. They left out the issue number, they have the wrong page numbers, they misspelled their own name. Like, So just from the authors themselves, there's already corruption of the data to begin with. And then it goes through hundreds potentially of other hands as the information gets updated from legacy systems. And oftentimes that's where the all caps come from, is it was a legacy digital system, maybe one of the old dialogue databases, where that was how they used to structure the information. All titles had all caps, every word in a title, all caps. There was, ways of formatting author names, last name, comma, first initial period, space, second initial period, like that used to be required as a format in the old databases. So we're working with a lot of legacy data, sometimes from many different systems, and now you put them all together and you're trying to normalize them, and it's chaos. I mean, it's a mess. Instead of being surprised that some of these items don't have perfect information, you should be shocked that any of them are right. So, I mean, generally, the explanation here is just that there's a tremendous amount of data, and the normalization and kind of fixing all those records takes a very long time. And now, rather than being able to focus on cleaning up all the old records, of course, everyone's concerned about ingesting the millions and millions of new records that are being created. And hopefully, as time goes on, the systems, the digital systems that we're using to create and originally organize all of this information will get better, so that new information we're ingesting will be normalized on receipt. But we are not there yet. So this kind of understanding how things can go wrong in records and how to try to make up for faulty systems and bad information, that is still a necessary skill for a high-level researcher to understand. How come this didn't work? How did this fall apart in this particular case? And doing a kind of reverse engineering, analyzing what happened. How could I make up for this system failure or system weakness? I mean, rather than feeling from like a place of privilege that my technology system should be giving me everything I want and I shouldn't even really have to ask more than once. It's much more useful to think about how can I understand more about how this system works so that I can manipulate it to get the ends that I want. I'm not going to count on the system to correctly understand what I want. I'd rather count on myself to correctly understand how the system doesn't work and how I can use that to my advantage.
Great answer. I want to give you a 9-minute warning here.
Okay.
That you get to interlibrary loans.
Yes, let's definitely do interlibrary loan next. So one of the use case scenarios that we've been talking about that the OneSearch system is really good for is this known item searching. You've got a citation and you want to figure out, do we have full text access to this article, let's say, and if so, which database, and take me to that. So you may start, like I was suggesting, by doing just a general search on the title of the article in quotation marks from that, the everything search from the search box on the library homepage. And if that doesn't work, you could try the advanced search to try to specify the title of the article, one of the author's names, and that the format is article. And if that doesn't work, then you could try the journal search to see, well, this journal that my article's in, do we have any access to it? And if so, where is that? And then try to track down the article that way. The time eventually will come where you're like, I don't think we have access to this article, but I really do need it. And in that case, what we can do, we're doing a search. Let's imagine we've got, does anybody happen to have like an actual title of a real journal article handy? If not, I'll just make something up and it will work okay. All right, let's just do our depression and meditation. And we'll just imagine that that is the core part of the title of an article. Now, notice that unlike the search box on the library homepage, once we're actually in the system and we're doing a search, as I type in the search, it's giving me the scope options down here. So it's saying depression and meditation. Is that what you mean? And do you want to search this in everything, Saybrook library materials, or do you want to search this in beyond my library, interlibrary loan? So those are the two scopes that we have for searching in the OneSearch system. If you search everything, you're searching everything we have access to. If you're searching beyond my library, you're searching everything we have access to and everything else the system knows about, which is a lot. But like Google Scholar, it's like, well, we don't know exactly what. It's everything they could get their hands on. So it really is a lot. So by default, you're always searching in everything because you usually are only wanting to see results for things that we actually have access to. But when you're ready to be like, I don't know, I really need this article, it didn't come up easily in the everything search, let's try the Beyond My Library search. And once you have done a search, notice how the search box changes, and you've got the piece on the left where you enter your search terms, and now we have a scope piece on the right, which will have our two options, which is just everything Saybrook Library and Beyond My Library, Interlibrary Loan. So when we do a search Beyond My Library, Interlibrary Loan, it is returning results from our collection, things we do have access to and things that we don't. So let's look for something that we don't have access to. And so notice the things that we do have access to, it will have like the Google, like I'm feeling lucky, available online link. When it's something that we don't have, that at least the OneSearch thinks that we don't have access to, rather than available online, notice what it says is, get it for me from other libraries. And so as you're looking through search results, this is one of the indications about, is this something that we have, or is this something that we don't have? And so let's look for an article. So here's mindfulness-based stress reduction, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, and Zen meditation for depression, anxiety, pain, and psychological distress. So this looks like something we don't have. So let's pull up the full record for this. And now we are looking at the full record. And remember when we looked at records before from when we did an everything search, so it was only returning results from things that we do own access to. There was a section here in the record for something we did own access to, which said full text access, and it listed out the databases, and it provided links to actually get that access. Notice that that section doesn't appear here because we don't actually have any access to this article. But what does appear here is this how to get from other locations. And so the big thing I'll mention about our Interlibrary Loan service now is it's amazing. It's free to you. It's fast. Things usually come within 24 hours. That is not a lie. And it's great for articles and for book chapters. What we cannot, and by we, I mean Saybrook for sure, but also all the other affiliates, TCSPP and Pacific Oaks, we have structured, and we've had to have structured in some ways, the Interlibrary Loan system so that we are not able to request physical books. And if you think about it, for us, that's a no-brainer. We don't have a location that you could come and pick them up. So we would have to be mailing things and mailing things back, and it's prohibitive. That's not going to happen. So do remember, in terms of getting your hands on physical books, that your local public library can do interlibrary loan of physical books, and you would go to the library to pick it up, and they can often request things from their academic counterparts. So even though it's a public library, you could still request academic books that way. That's a much better way to look for whole books. But when you want chapters from books, individual chapters digitally, and when you want articles, this interlibrary loan system is amazing and efficient and easy and fast and free. So what you would do from once you found a record for this item that you wanted, and you can see that we don't have access to it, you click on the get it. And remember, let me remind you, I'm already logged in. Remember, I clicked on the sign in button and I used my Saybrook email and my regular Saybrook password to log into the system. Because I'm already logged in, it gives us the ability of doing this quite straightforwardly, which is I'm looking at the full record for this article I want to request. I say, get it. It populates this box with my email attached to my account. And all I need to do to submit this request is check this box that says, I understand that the library loan is governed by copyright, and there are ways that I'm not going to be passing along copies of this article to other people. I'm controlling it. I understand it's under copyright. You agree to that, and then click send. That's all there is to it. A box will pop up here. Let me show you what it looks like. I'll send this request. So I send the request. And once it goes through, you get this little green box that says the request was successfully submitted. And now and that's all there is to it. And if I go up to now my account, because I'm signed in, and I go to my requests, and the requests are interlibrary loan requests. So I click on this, And it brings up a list of all of my active and some past interlibrary loan requests that I've submitted on my account. And remember, each one of you has your own account and can do this, and this is free and fast and easy. So this request has been submitted this morning, or I think it was this one, maybe it's this one, mindfulness-based stress reductions. So when this article is available as a PDF file, which should be within 24 hours, I will get an email that says, your requested article is now available. Click on this link to go into the OneSearch system and access your PDF file. And it lets you download that PDF file up to 5 times over the course of the next month. And that's just like a safety feature. You really only need to download it once, because then you have a copy of the PDF file and that's yours and you keep it and it doesn't go away. But you have the opportunity to download it up to 5 times from the system by coming back into here. Like if I wanted to re-download this systematic review and meta-analysis, I could download it from right here. So, and this really does happen for the vast majority of articles within 24 hours. So you submit that request like I just did. By this time tomorrow morning, I will have a PDF copy of that article. And it doesn't cost me anything. I don't believe that at this point anyway, that there's any like limits to how many requests you can submit in a day or something. Sometimes it's limited to like 5 requests a day. I'm not sure any of that is implemented yet. So this is a huge upgrade to what we used to have to do, both on our end and on the back end of this system. The amount of money we had to pay per request, the amount of money that you had to pay per request, all of that is fixed now.
So Noah, we're out of time actually, so I can stay on for a few minutes if you can, but I know I'm also mindful of time. And we did have a couple questions just to confirm. This is a change to the interlibrary loan system from what we used to use before.
It's a total change for us. This is also a brand new system behind the scenes. It's called the Rapido. And it's a brand new interlibrary loan system that hasn't existed before. We're actually one of the very first customers. We met with the Rapido development team about 5 months ago, and they had no customers yet. They were just finishing the product. We were like the first demo that they did. So we're really on the ground floor with this, and it's incredible. I mean, how fast it is, that it doesn't cost anything. This feels like we're living in the future a little bit. It's great.
So here's the big question. What do you think is the most important tool that they need to be aware of as they conduct their dissertation research?
Okay,
their library research for their dissertation.
I would say the most important thing is a process and not a tool. So there are plenty of tools that are useful for very different purposes and use case scenarios. But the biggest thing that is a fundamental process change when you're really getting into dissertation level research. And it's how you work with references and citations. And so when you're doing searching in the databases, subject-based searching for like a term paper or something, really what you're looking for is good enough information. You're looking for a couple articles. That's going to be enough to support the kind of argument you need to make for a term paper or something. But when you need to get deeper, much deeper, dissertation deep into a research topic, in addition to doing kind of discovery subject-based searching, looking for topics and trying to discover that things exist that way, you still do that and you find good match items. And then you start working with the references. You start looking at, so here's a really good paper on my topic. Let me see, who are they referring to? Which are the papers that they thought were important? And then you keep doing that with every single item that you find. And over time, what starts to happen is a different kind of pattern recognition process. So because you're constantly looking at the references and the cited by information for the items that you're finding, you start to detect patterns. I see this author's name all the time. This one particular paper shows up in almost every paper. Okay, well, that's a primary paper then. And you could work outside of that. You can look at that primary paper that you've identified through pattern recognition by looking at the references and then see, okay, because I know this is important, let me look at everything else that's been published since then, which is citing this paper. And that's called a cited by search. Still, the best way to do one of those is Google Scholar, I would say. that functionality is built into OneSearch, but it doesn't work yet as good as the Google Scholar cited by search does. So if you have an older article that's a super good match topically and you want to, but it's old, let's say it's like 1985, and you want it, but it's really on topic, and you want to see what's been published since 1985 that's citing this core paper, search on the core paper's title in Google Scholar, and then look at that cited by link. It will show you all of the, hundreds or thousands maybe of articles that have been published since then, which are citing that primary paper or book chapter. So the different way of searching by using references and cited by information, and then operating like a pattern recognition process on top of that by just continually exposing yourselves to these lists of all the different cited research in that area. And you'll start to see, oh, there's a particular university, a department at a particular university is publishing a lot on this. Let me go look at their site. Or there's a conference that's offered annually where a lot of these papers are being presented. Who else is presenting there? Where do they teach? Again, let me send an email to that person. So it's not just searching and putting subject terms in a database and looking at the results. That's not the only way to search. And when you start needing detail and depth at the level of dissertation, you must be working with the references and citations. I mean, that is the unique structural component of the academic conversation, that through references and citations, we're connecting things that were thought in the past, how they changed, and what we think in the future. And so you can track the academic conversation discussion by using the references and citations.
So Noah, this has been great. You've already had a request to do a pattern recognition presentation and conversation with this group. I think we would love to have you back to talk to us some more about this. Is there anything else you would like to say in closing to this group for those who are still hanging out?
Just that's kind of sustained attention to the references and the connections between research, like focusing on that, really working that is what eventually gives you the ding that, like, I think I'm done for the most part with my research because everything I'm finding now this way, I'm already familiar with. And that's will give you a feeling of like, I think I have thoroughly explored the literature. So it is good because people often wonder, how will I ever know that I'm done? When will I be done looking for stuff on my topic? And on the one hand, there's an answer, well, never, you'll never be done because there's always going to be new stuff being generated. But for your dissertation, you'll start to feel like I'm close to done because like I know all this stuff that's coming up. I know who that author is, and I know where they work, and I know why their ideas were important in the 90s and how that was like proven wrong in the 2000s and how it came back into style in 2015. And so that does happen, and believe that it does, and you will be like a master of your topic. And really just by sustained paying attention over time to like, how does this fit into the larger conversation? You start to build an internal map of the territory of your subject that's different, that's more intimate.
So Noah, this has been great. I think we should stop the recording now, and then I'd invite you all to